and it's right along the leading edge where the gust front is. That could be producing some winds of 55, maybe over 60 miles per hour. And then right in this location, where Doppler indicating the potential for a tornado. So specifically, the tornado warning covers these areas: Folkestone, Maddox, Burnt Fort, to near south of Big Oak, and then gets into Camden County. For now, this might be expanded eastward, but for now, the tornado warning in Camden County is along and east of I-95. We're talking about northwest of Kingsland, northwest of St. Mary's, but certainly involves the Woodbine area. But what Lauren is doing, and what we're alluding to, is that although the warning only goes to I-95, the squall line that's producing the potential wind damage and possibly the tornado, that's going to continue to race to the east. So that's going to make it all the way to the coast. And because it's moving so quickly, it's probably going to make it to the coast probably by about 2:10 to 2:15. Now, the good news there is it's not going to last long. So for those of you that need to get on the road, that want to be out and about in Charlton County, if you just hang on for about another 30 minutes or so, you're going to be fine. Now, we're just getting reports in. Now, this is from, notice, this is 12:49. So this is before 1 o'clock. This is when we were tracking, when Lauren was tracking the potential tornado in northern Ware County. And indeed, now reports are that trees are down in the Dixie Union area, and there could be trees down in other areas, especially northwest of Waycross. So if you're going to be driving over northern Ware County, use some caution out there, because you may suddenly come across a tree across the road. That was from the storm of the last tornado warning. This is about where the worst of the weather and the highest possibility of rotation and possibly a tornado. So we're talking about areas in eastern Folkestone County. We're talking about coming out of the Okefenokee and then into a few areas that includes Maddox and Newell. And as we switch to different colors, what Lauren's doing is, and occasionally you'll see the velocity here, at least allows us to pick up at least Doppler indicated winds of maybe 70 miles per hour. That in itself is enough to cause some wind damage. Maybe 74. That's enough certainly to cause debris to go through windows. So even if as the storm goes by, you might be able to say, okay, maybe we don't have a tornado. Almost doesn't matter. You don't want to be on the road with winds this strong, not going to last long, and with the possibility of even debris going through windows. So for those of you over eastern Charlton County, I would go ahead and treat this like possibly a tornado. At the very least, what that means is keep you and your family members away from windows. Especially, we're talking about areas north of Folkestone. In the Newell area, immediately right now, this is where the strongest portion of the cell is. This is where the possibility of rotation is. This is where the highest number of lightning strikes are. This is where the heaviest rains are, blinding rains, I'm sure, reducing visibilities down to just a few feet in this particular portion of the cell. Now, this is all along a line of thunderstorms that continues to race eastward. So although we're hyper-focused on the tornado warning and the potential for a rotation here, certainly possibly causing some wind damage, it's all along this line that we've been talking about really for the last couple of days. We saw the system really come together about Monday in the Arklatex area. But this is going to sweep through all of Glenn, all of Camden County, all of Nassau County. Notice we have it to St. Mary's 210 into Hilliard, through Baker County, and then extends all the way down through Florida. This is the same line that's going to come through the Jacksonville metropolitan area, probably between about 3 and 4, and they get you folks down over St. John's and Putnam and Flagler County later on in the afternoon. So with this particular cell, so far, we don't have any indications of actual damage yet. We're just now beginning to get some reports of the cell that caused trees to come down over northern Ware County. That particular cell, by the way, is racing all the way up near Savannah. This tornado warning goes to 145. But what Lauren's showing you here is this line of thunderstorms extends all the way into the Gulf of Mexico. So although the tornado warning, again, is for a relatively small, look at this. This is the frontal system that extends all the way into the Gulf of Mexico. So for those of you in coastal Georgia and for the rest of us in northeastern Florida, be prepared for the fact we are going to get rain. Some of that rain is needed, but we are going to have some thunderstorms with numerous lightning strikes, and many of us will probably see wind gusts of 40 to 50 miles per hour. Another way to say that is 40 miles per hour. That's tropical storm strength. So it's like saying a line of thunderstorms with tropical storm force winds will impact all of us over the next couple of hours. There's a lighter color here this boundary, this is where the severe thunderstorm warnings are. And so that just reinforces what we're talking about, that this boundary, which is similar to this color here, that's showing where severe thunderstorm warning. We expect that there will be winds, possibly with winds gusting up to about 60 miles per hour, even outside of the tornado warning. And notice that includes now Glenn County. And just, there's a couple boxes here, but just think all of you in Glenn County, pretty much be prepared for the fact a severe thunderstorm's headed your way. Pretty much for all of you in Camden County, this is going to go all the way to the coast, so be prepared for severe thunderstorms, severe thunderstorm wind gust headed your way. And we can work right on down through then Baker and Bradford and Union County, and then eventually we can work on off eastward toward Duval and St. John's. So notice Lauren was talking about this earlier as well. There's a lot of different ingredients we can look at to allow it to sort of make us show or see with a bright light of where the storm is, and very often where the most frequent lightning strikes are, and that is right here. There's also, notice instead of a straight line, there's also maybe not quite what we would call a hook, but notice sort of an indentation here. And typically that's not happening just randomly. That's happening because there's just a bit of enough curvature in the winds. Maybe south and southeast and eastward here, maybe some northwest winds here. And so right in this area here, between Uptonville and Cypress Siding there, this is right about, and then think off to the northeast, this is right about where the strongest winds are, and more than likely rotation and possibly the tornado. So the good news for those of you in Folkestone, although you are certainly right now getting some strong wind gust, at least if we're going to paint the rotation right about here, that's passing to the north of Folkestone. And if we painted that rotation moving right about this way, so out of Charlton County and then through northwestern Camden County, there's the rotation indicated by the radar. But again, close enough to Folkestone so that for those of you in the Folkestone area, I would still treat it as an imminent tornado. This threat for you won't last for about another 10 to 15 minutes, so why not play it safe? Don't get in your vehicle and keep you and your loved ones away from windows as well. Windows and trees, anything that might cause debris. My biggest concern really in this part of the world will be trees and debris. And in fact, with that pretty significant freeze we just had, there's a lot of dead what had been forestation out there. You know what I'm talking about. Some of the bushes, some of the smaller trees. That's enough debris out there that can be picked up, possibly thrown around. So again, the tornado warning goes until 1:15. Now it's interesting that the tornado warning, notice the size of the box or polygon. This is almost a box now. Notice that has shrunk and well, okay, no, the tornado warning does extend as far to the, gotcha. The tornado warning does extend, it still extends almost to I-95, but certainly the biggest concern is right here in this area of extreme eastern Folkestone County. And then for those of you in Camden County, from White Oak to Woodbine and then farther to the south, and really we're talking about just about Kingsland. Of course, Kingsland's here, so just about into Kingsland. So I would say, why not play it safe? And for those of you from Kingsland to Woodbine to White Oak, don't get on the roads over the next 30 minutes and keep your loved ones away from windows. I would say play it safe, and if you're in a building of questionable security, maybe get in the hallways, because this is moving pretty quickly. And that means for those of you maybe within the family who are whining about why do we have to do this, do it for about 20 to 30 minutes. And I think we'll be fine, and then the storm will be out of here. So what about hail? Yeah, if you don't even know where the worst of the storm is, what Lauren has done now is she's tracked where radar has indicated hail has occurred, and so it's right along this line of the storm. So the storm is racing to the northeast. The front is heading to the east and to the southeast. You combine the two, and that's the motion that you get off to the east and northeast at about probably 40 to 50 miles per hour. So we continue to track, at least right now, it looks like this is the only area with potential rotation. And this, again, if you're just joining us, it's a lot of colors. It's here in extreme eastern Folkestone County, or eastern Charlton County, just north of Folkestone, and then about ready to get into western Camden County. Here's a broader look at all that's happening. Again, notice the shading. That's where the tornado watch is. This is the tornado warning. then there's a lot of lines. But if you really just want to know the headline, we occasionally are seeing the need to put out tornado warnings, but within this long line, solid line of guaranteed heavy rain and lightning and winds gusting guaranteed to 40 miles per hour and possibly some wind gusting to 50 and maybe even 60 miles per hour. So these are the sustained winds prior to the storm. So they're not actually tracking what's happening within the storm itself. Here you see some wind gusts within the storm as well. You know, very often we talk about heat is really, yeah, sure, it lets us know how warm or hot it is, but heat is also a measure of energy, or at least potential energy. So the warmer the temperatures, the more potential energy there is. The cooler the temperatures, the less energy. So the good news is, for those of you out to the west where temperatures have cooled, that's it as far as the severe weather threat. But for those of you just east of where these storms are going to be feeding off of that energy. They're going to be feeding off of the heat. In fact, it's record heat. The record officially for Jacksonville is 82 degrees, and I think we probably tied that record for the day. All right, we have a new tornado warning now. This is a new tornado warning, and this is over eastern Columbia County and west central Baker County. So this tornado warning goes until 2:15. So this is a new tornado warning. It is, for those of you in Lake City, it's to the east of you. So although the storm is still headed toward Lake City, that is this overall storm complex, this particular part of the storm that could be producing the tornado, that's east of Lake City, and that's moving away from you. But that does mean that for those of you not only northeast of Lake City, but also now in Baker County, we want to keep a close watch on this cell, because this will be racing off to the east and northeast as well. That signature doesn't necessarily pick up quite as well, but wow, showing potentially some winds gusting up to about 80 miles per hour. So again, these are, here we go. Good job, Lauren. So for those of you who have just joined us, Lauren has joined us. Lauren was home with her second child and family for the last 4 months, but she is back, just came back yesterday. A lot of you have been asking about her. That's who's driving the radar right now. She was actually working these storms earlier. And I think, yeah, let's hold it for just a second, Lauren, on this, because we can see what the overall picture is. So we're in record heat. That means a lot of energy, and the dew points are high. That means even more energy. Colder air coming in from the northwest. Where those two meet, that's causing the storm. Above where that air, the warm air is meeting the cold air, winds at about 10 to 25,000 feet. They're racing to the northeast at about 50 to 80 miles per hour. And as those winds do that, there's rotation of those winds riding over where this complex is occurring. And so occasionally this storm front, we'll call it a squall line, that's going to continue to march eastward with storms, will occasionally produce at least the possibility of some tornadoes. So at the present time, we have at least one tornado warning in effect. This is a new one now. This is for, again, east central Columbia County and then western portions of Baker County. I would like to say a little bit about technology. For those of you that have been around for a few decades, as much as we don't want to see tornado warnings, the area in which the tornado warnings are issued are much smaller than they used to be. Doesn't mean that tornadoes are smaller. What it means is technology allows us now to really pinpoint where, if you're going to take action, you need to. In other words, this same tornado or same system 30 or 40 years ago, we would have probably included all of Columbia and Baker County. So nowadays, when you see a tornado warning in your particular area, if there had been hesitation, there's plenty of reasons to go ahead and take action. Now, when I say take action, that might mean to decide not to take action and get in your vehicle. One of the biggest concerns with these storms would be for anybody on the road. So for those of you in this area, and let's just say eastern Columbia County and western Baker County, now is not the time to be on the road. The tornado warning... Okay, so Lauren has it. The tornado warning in Camden and Charlton County has been canceled. So, you know, we like to share good news as well, folks. So although those of you in Charlton and Camden County, you're still dealing with that thunderstorm complex, but that tornado warning is no longer in effect. We have a new tornado warning for a different area for those of you in now Columbia County and Baker County, and this goes until 2:15. Now, for those of you to the east, for those of you in Nassau and Duval, Clay, St. Johns County, even Putnam and Bradford for that matter. Although we're showing you the motion of the potential tornadoes to the northeast, don't be fooled and think that all of this storminess will head to the northeast. These storms are going to continue to march from the west to the east. So these storms might not be quite as intense over the next hour or two. Here it is. Lauren's going to show us a nice picture here. So again, although the individual storms, we call them cells, although they're racing off to the northeast, the overall line, probably doesn't take me to tell you, notice it's moving from the west to the east. There's a lot going on here, but basically is. So for those of you, again, in Duval, Bradford, Clay, St. Johns, Putnam, and Flagler County, again, be prepared. These storms are headed your way as well. For the Jacksonville metropolitan area, we're talking about pretty much after about 3 o'clock, and that's going to hold true. But I would say really anytime after 2 or 2:30 from Nassau to Duval County, plan on these thunderstorms to get in toward the area. So here's Lake City as the clouds blow in rapidly from the west and to the southwest. And was that over the last hour? Yeah, so that's about the last hour and a half or so, hour.
Yeah, so this is 1 o'clock here. So, and this is off US and Highway 90 and I-75 right by Columbia County EOC. So you can see a little bit of a nice cloud there. Look at that, squall headed into Lake City. And then you can see the raindrops on the camera. They get very, very kind of dense and heavy. Maybe even some darker clouds that have a little bit of rotation in them. But again, still just the fact that this is what a lot of people are seeing, that really ominous looking cloud head your way, the wind picks up, that heavy rain falls, and kind of moves on out of there. So things are clearer in this area, but of course just down the road here is where we have that tornado warning that Tim was mentioning. And Tim, I've been keeping a close eye. We've been listening to all the beeps come in to the Weather Center here. No actual reports from the Weather Service, but they are just continuing to expire and issue and kind of continue a lot of these warnings that we've got. So for now, again, the big thing is that we've got that tornado watch, which means those ingredients are in place for all of these warnings to kind of occur. But we also have those tornado warnings that are popping throughout these severe thunderstorm warnings. And when we get the warning, that's when the ingredients are coming together to produce one of those strong storms. And actually a new severe thunderstorm warning was just issued, stretching all the way to the coast. So that warning before that, Tim and I were tracking with all of this lightning, mind you. Let's just see in this small little area just around, just west of Woodbine out toward Folkston, toward Big Oak, we've got 178 strikes within the last 15 minutes. This no longer has a tornado warning per se, but it does have a severe thunderstorm warning. That red box that you see is my query box, so that's not a tornado warning. I know that can be a little confusing. We'll have to change the color of that now that I think of it. But if we go ahead and actually time this out, and Tim, feel free to pop back on whenever you would like, but I'm going to just take this out to the east because I think Tim can go ahead and agree that we are definitely seeing more of an easterly track with these storms as they head toward the coast rather than northeast, just a little bit more. And so toward Harriet's Bluff by about 2:13, and I'd say that tornado watch should be able to expire hopefully around 2 o'clock, but again, it's just awfully close, maybe 2:30, 3 o'clock when we can really give the all clear up in southeast Georgia, Tim.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Yes, Lauren reading my mind as well. So as the individual thunderstorms organize and become a solid line, we call it a squall line, that eventually we have, instead of discrete cells, which means you don't want to see a discrete cell. A discrete cell means instead of winds coming all out of one direction, that in individual areas we can begin to get some curvature. So we might call this a discrete cell here. And the other discrete cell that Lauren tracked north of Waycross in northern Ware County through Patterson County, now racing towards Savannah. And you tend to have discrete cells as motion heads off toward the northeast. But then as the line becomes, and I think Lauren is noticing maybe what we're seeing as well. As the line becomes a little more organized, instead of all of the motion going to the northeast, we start to see more motion from west to east, which means more in the way of straight line winds. Now, if there's a little bit of positive there, that would mean then somewhat of a decrease in the threat of tornadoes, which is why it could be that, as Lauren mentioned, between about 2 and 2:30, the tornado watch might be dropped. it would mean actually a larger area of potentially strong straight line winds. And don't have to tell you, 69-mile-per-hour wind gusts, that's Doppler indicated, but probably some pretty good verification there. That is right about on I-10 there as we head from Columbia County into Baker County. That's getting up toward hurricane force gust. That's certainly strong tropical storm force gust conditions. That is certainly enough to bring down a tree limb and possibly even some trees. So again, yet another reason to where if you don't have to be driving along, and again, I'm not talking about just plain rain. Once you get out toward Tallahassee and now west of Waycross, we're talking about just plain rain. But my main concern is our concern is the combination of rain and winds in some spots, maybe just isolated, but some spots gusting up to 55, 60, maybe 70 miles per hour. That can certainly impact your vehicle, impact an 18-wheeler near you, but could bring suddenly debris on the road that you don't have time to prepare for. Okay, so what Lauren has done is we're looking at the overall line of storms in which most of us should expect winds gusting to 40 miles per hour, possibly gust up to over 60 miles per hour, and you can paint the line as it heads basically from the west to the east. So Brunswick, 2 to 210, and then heading offshore as we get toward Fernandina, even before 3 o'clock. Notice Oakleaf, so that would be western Duval County, northwestern Clay County. That's just after 3 o'clock. This is probably about downtown Jacksonville, 324. But notice making it to the coast, at least from Duval County north, by 3:30. So this storm system is on the way, is moving pretty quickly, even gets through Clay County and maybe northwestern Putnam County by about 3:30. I guess I also like to bring that up in that if you do just have to be out and about on the roadways, because this is moving quickly, it could be that at least the concern for the rain and the highest winds and possibly some hail will be out of here by later this afternoon if you can just put things off for a bit. So what we're following here, we continue to follow. Remember the cell in which there was the concern for the tornado? That tornado warning no longer in effect, but that is a severe storm that could produce some damaging hail. Now, Marble isn't quite up to what we call damaging, but still indicates some pretty significant hail out here following that main cell that we've been watching continues to track along off to the east and northeast at about 40 to 50 miles per hour. And you can just think of that or a visual signature as far as where the worst of the weather is. First, the strong wind gust with the heavy rain and the dangerous lightning and the hail. And again, the main portion of that cell working off to the east and the northeast. Here's the tornado warning. This is our new tornado warning, and now the only tornado warning we have in the area. This goes until 2:15. This is for eastern Columbia County and then western Baker County. And this particular cell actually now has just moved out of Columbia County. So we'll probably see the tornado warning dropped for Columbia County. And I'm especially noting for those of you in the Lake City area, simply because so much of the Columbia County population is in and around Lake City. So this is moving away from those of you in the Lake City area and into Baker County. So when we get to Baker County, of course, we're concerned about everybody, but what about more the larger population areas like McClenny? So McClenny here, at least this particular cell, looks like that will race off to the, and let's say it's moving northeastward, but the overall concern will move about like this. That would take that concern north of those of you in the McClenny area. But still, in McClenny and other areas of eastern Baker County, be prepared for the fact that within the next 30 minutes or so, you're going to have strong thunderstorms, easily with wind gusts of 40 to 50 miles per hour. Yes, nice to see this moving at least out of Columbia County. Again, I don't want to mislead you. There are still storms on the way through Columbia County that will be producing some strong gusts, but at least as far as where we're hyper-focused here on this particular tornado warning that's moving out of Columbia County and then into Baker County and off to the east and northeast. And in Baker County, focused probably more on the Kenny to Taylor area to the northwest of McClenny. Doesn't mean that other cells might develop farther off toward the southwest. We'll certainly keep a close watch on that. Lauren continues to check it out to see if we can see any other information there that we can help you out with. Now, if we do get reports of actual damage or visualization of a tornado on the ground, we of course will let you know immediately. The fact that we're not passing on that information, it's good news. So again, strong storms, and we're getting some isolated wind damage reports. But at least so far we haven't had widespread wind damage reports as the front continues to march from the west toward the east. Now, I hesitate to say this, but I'm going to anyhow, because I want all of us to be prepared for storminess to move into our area. But most indications is that as this system continues to work toward the east, although there's a lot of heat and humidity, the winds above the storms will begin to decrease a little bit. So overall, these storms probably won't be quite as intense as they get in toward Duval and Clay and Putnam, St. Johns, and Flagler County. Still going to be storms, though. That's why I hesitate to say that, because they still will be strong. There still will be the possibility of debris. But if you're wondering, well, gosh, you can see the squall line is on the way, and we know this tornado watch is going to end at 2 o'clock. Why doesn't the Severe Storms Forecast Office, that's who produces this, why don't they extend it for other counties? It's because of that. Because although, yes, we expect storms to continue, we think the threshold for tornadoes will drop maybe just below the need for a tornado watch. Now, this is a forecast. We notice we call it Futurecast, and Lauren has put that into motion for us. And if you just look at where the most intense or the amount of intense colors, nearly a solid line, and then as Lauren moves it along to 5 and 6 o'clock, notice how we lose those colors. So that's a visual presentation of what I was trying to say. Thank you, Lauren. So a solid squall line, still storms within it, and still could produce some winds gusting to 60 miles per hour. But overall, the threat, let's say what you're seeing here we think will happen over about the next 5 hours is we'll go from widespread winds gusting to 40 to 50 miles per hour, so that probably just isolated spots with winds gusting to 40 to 50 miles per hour. Here's another way to look at it. So the severe storms, the Storms Prediction Center. Think of them as like being the hurricane center of tornadic and severe weather. They're out of Oklahoma, just out of Oklahoma City. Notice they have the colors become less intense right about over our area, and this further supports the idea, anyhow, what we can see as best we can tell, that the threat of tornadoes will decrease over the next couple of hours or so. That's why we fully expect that at 2 o'clock, the tornado watch will be dropped, or near 2 o'clock. It could be, just to be safe, especially with this particular cell, that tornado watch will hold for a little bit longer. But certainly concerned about this tornado warning. The good news is the cell possibly producing the tornado has moved out of Columbia County, but now it is into Baker County. And I think our greatest concern right now are for those of you who live in Taylor and Kenny in Baker County, and then off to the west and to the southwest. Right in this area, if there's going to be rotation, certainly this is where some of the strongest winds are. These are the areas, and here's a few smaller regions that Lauren has hyper-focused on there between about now and 2:15, which is as the tornado warning extends until that point. Okay, so if you just joined us and you're in those areas, what do? First of all, the strongest statement we can make is don't get into a vehicle unless for some reason you think you have to because of the lack of security of where you are. If you're going to get into a vehicle, go to the southeast. You want to move in a perpendicular direction away from the storm. So that would be off to the east and to the southeast. But I would highly recommend at this point, for those of you in Baker County, southwest, and then toward Taylor and Kenny, the most dangerous place to be is going to be in a moving vehicle. And then second, if you're in a location, as we take a look at some of the severe weather ingredients, in which these are the ingredients we look at if we're trying to make a forecast that is for the threat, continued threat of severe weather, and these are the ingredients that we're looking at. We look at things like shear and moisture, the wind profile. Those are the ingredients that go into it. This is the tornado warning that we're talking about. This is the tornado watch. So we're right at about 2 o'clock. It'll be interesting to see what the Severe Storms Forecast Office actually does. We can see what the weather is actually doing. That's one of the nice things about having radar here. Plenty of lightning. For a January event, this is a lot of lightning, folks. So don't forget that although we're talking a lot about winds and we're talking about the potential for a tornado, the tornado warning continues in Baker County until 2:15, that although we're talking a lot about winds and even hail, That's a lot of lightning. And unfortunately, the biggest killer in Florida and Georgia year in and year out, at least southeastern Georgia, is from lightning strikes. So don't forget about that concern. If for some reason you've convinced yourself you're going to be okay to be out and about in the rain and the wind, plenty of lightning out there. So we continue to update the different watches and warnings that are out there. Remember, the difference between a watch and a warning is the watch means watch for possibly storms. Warning means there are storms. There are severe thunderstorms, meaning winds gusting up to near 60 miles per hour. As best as we can tell, even if we don't see a tornado, there is a storm that occasionally could be producing rotation, and thus that tornado warning until 2:15. And there you see it. If you're occasionally hearing Lauren's voice, but you're not hearing it clearly, Lauren is here helping drive the radar, and this yellow shading here, you're going to see it drop off pretty quickly. What that means is the tornado watch is no longer in effect. And if
the tornado warning, I'm sorry, Tim, the tornado warning for Columbia has been finally canceled, which you actually have been talking about for quite some time. And actually, as we speak, a new warning, as you see up above your head there, has just been posted for that same cell. So this is Camden County. We actually are just now going to be getting this warning in our system. It'll pop on the screen in just a moment so we can see how long that's going to go till. So Camden and Glen actually will include this. This is Woodbine, Dover Bluff, Shelbine, so out toward the coast as this strong storm continues to pull out toward the east. Report of possible tornado actually just coming in from the National Weather Service west of Colesburg. Radar showing a supercell storm with the rotational loft, of course, but the tornado possible within this cell. So this is a dangerous cell that we've been tracking again since about 12 o'clock, 12:30 when we started getting warnings in our area. But again, Camden County near Woodbine, if you are in this area, we really want you to go ahead and pay super attention to this storm because we do have that rotation with a possible tornado being reported in the area. Okay, so Camden and Glen, this is going to go until 2:15. We'll go ahead and get our velocity on, but I think really just the folks that are in Woodbine right now, that are in Seals, Harriet's Bluff, Forest View, along that 95 corridor, pretty much from Hickory Bluff all the way down to Kingsland, right along that Florida-Georgia border, you're going to want to stay off the roadways. You're going to want to make sure you get inside your home. We've got a dangerous storm that's continuing to pull toward the coast, and really, like Tim has been saying, kind of taking more of that individual path away from that big line of storms that's been moving toward the northeast. This is really pulling toward the east directly now, right over Woodbine. There's a lot of lightning. There's even been some hail reported out there as well, and some of the hail getting a little larger. Now, keep in mind, this is kind of sometimes 5 to 10 minutes delayed on our hail tracker, so it shows it out to the west of Woodbine, walnut-size hail, but that's likely over Woodbine right now. The worst of the weather is now over Woodbine and continuing to pull toward the east right along that 95 corridor. No other news from the Weather Service, but I think that's obviously something. The report of possible tornado is strong enough for folks to get inside and take this storm seriously. Hopefully you've been doing so, as Tim and I have been tracking this for quite some time now. We've got some really strong winds. Remember, this is all radar indicated, but we could see up to 60, 70 mile per hour wind gusts, maybe even stronger than that. Of course, if we're talking about a tornado, that will have the rotation and the potential for some damage in the area. Tornado or not really, I mean, we're talking about some strong straight line damaging winds as well in this entire line. Are you seeing anything that I am not, Tim? I'm just trying to drive here and see what we've got.
Yeah, it is too bad to see that this cell certainly intense, and if anything has intensified. And I'm just going to triple underline what Lauren just said. For those of you in the Woodbine area, so those of you within, I'd say 5 to 10 miles of the Woodbine area in all direction, you do not want to get in a vehicle right now. Go ahead and play it safe and get away from windows. At the very least, this certainly could producing, as Lauren mentioned, some winds gusting to well over 60 miles per hour, and our big concern being debris going through windows. Certainly, there's the greater concern of, does it become strong enough to where we do get a rotation, we do have a tornado, it is picking up buildings. Don't have reports of that yet, but still, this is intense, and certainly it's worth the effort to not get into vehicles, get away from windows. For those of you in particularly vulnerable places, either of work or at home with your loved ones, this is the type of event it makes sense to us to go ahead and get in the hallway, get in some place where you're away from windows. You're only going to have to do this, especially for those of you I-95 westward, for about another 15 minutes. Why not? But what as Lauren has painted here now from I-95 eastward, again, this storm system is going to continue to march on through. There's going to be a variety of conditions, but for those of you in Camden County and southern Glenn County, over the next 30 minutes, I'd hunker down. Why not? Play it safe. Pretty strong storm system with the tornado warning, and even outside of the tornado warning, we have severe thunderstorm warnings. Also want to mention that the weather team has now expanded. Robert Spetta is here, and so he is helping us out. He's been out there eyeballing the weather. Okay, we have a confirmed tornado in the Woodbine area. Is that the report that you had, Lauren?
Right now, and that is moving toward the east at 35 miles per hour. And so right now, this is all we're getting right now is that we have a confirmed tornado located over Woodbine, moving east again, 35. So just think of it as really moving very quickly right now. If you are anywhere on the eastern side of this storm, if you're along 95 or east in Camden or Glenn County, even if you're just to the north in Red Bluff, even if you're just to the south in Kinlaw, we want you to be inside, away from windows, away from doors. We have a confirmed tornado over Woodbine, moving toward that 95 corridor in Camden County, and it's going to continue to pull toward the east as we watch this warning really extend all the way out to the coast. All right, so at this point, the warning is a confirmed tornado. It's no longer just a radar indicated. Up until this point, Tim, all of them have been radar indicated. As I just want to mention for folks who have been in a tornado warning, there's a difference when we see a confirmed tornado versus just on radar. So we'll go ahead and actually get our velocity out here as well, although I haven't been showing it out in this area, Tim, because it is really tricky. The purple colors that you all are seeing are actually just some feedback from the radar. We look for the reds and the greens, but right now we do have public confirmed report of a tornado over Woodbine, moving very quickly, probably in the 95 corridor as we speak. So Woodbine, Colesburg, and if I can go ahead and get as specific as possible, there's Scarlet, which likely the worst is just moving over or just out of it, Billyville, and I think that would be Ceylon, excuse my English there. We're doing the best we can here, trying to track this storm and all those little areas, but again, 95 corridor.
I'm sorry, Lauren, if you could, because it is moving so quickly, 35, 40 miles per hour,
go ahead
so
and cone
if you could cone that off to the east and the northeast as well.
And what I do is I actually am coning it out for 40 miles an hour, just so we can give folks a little bit earlier of a heads up, because we want to give you as much lead time as possible on this one.
Okay, and so do we have school in, okay, so school in session in Camden County, and I suspect that if folks, may not be picked up yet in many areas, know that school districts are aware of this. They are taking care of students, I'm sure. My concern is we don't want to see a lot of parents on the road racing toward schools in and around the Woodbine area. That would put you in harm's way as well. In many areas over northeast Florida and southeastern Georgia, some of our safest places to be are in schools with hallways without windows, and school systems are well aware of that. So I'm not passing on official information. I'm assuming some things, but there is a concern that now frantic parents might be racing toward some of these areas because of schools, and I would say trust the school system. I would suspect it would just
hold off on
it would be safer. It would be safer if parents, if you're not already at the schools, to stay in the schools. And we're not saying that schools are being hit. We're just letting you know that I'm sure precautions are being made throughout this area because of the tornado warning. And I want to emphasize what Lauren mentioned, that the difference between Doppler indicated and confirmed. Of course, we want you to take any tornado warning serious. And a tornado warning that's Doppler indicated now is much more accurate than it was 10 or 20 years ago. But once it's confirmed, that means, it's confirmed. And so if there was any hope that maybe that rotation is going to stay up in the air, we do have reports of it now on the ground. So here's what we officially have. Possible tornado reported near Highway 17, approaching Woodbine. So this all simply supports what we say. Now,
report came in 9 minutes ago, keep in mind, so it has already pulled toward the east pretty much on that 95 corridor, Tim. And also, you were mentioning hail as well. We do have some reports of definitely confirmed pea to dime size, but radar also suggesting up to golf ball size just west of Woodbine where that report was issued. So that is also another indicator, not just the lightning, not just the velocity map, but the hail is another indicator of a tornado as well.
Okay, so let's bring some of these numbers to home. So when we talk about this overall storm is moving along at 40 miles per hour, that means about every 10 minutes it's moving 7 miles. And this Doppler presentation, the map that Lauren has in right now, this is really hyper-focused. I mean, for those of you that live in this area, you know how close 95 is to Woodbine, how close 17. Here's Highway 17, how close Highway 17 is to Woodbine. So at 2 o'clock, so that was about 10 minutes ago, that confirmed tornado has already moved about 7 or 8 miles. So more than likely, and remember, this radar, it's close to real time, but not quite. So I would say the main concern now of the actual tornado probably has shifted from Highway 17 and is probably pretty close to I-95. In fact, this radar would indicate maybe even crossing I-95 because this is going to be just behind.
And it's just so tricky with the purple because that's not really giving us a whole lot. That's the feedback.
Just behind real time. So what this means is, for those of you in the Woodbine area, the worst is just about over. Our concern in the Woodbine area is going to be how much debris might be on the roadways. For those of you in Camden County now, east and northeast of Woodbine, this is where either the tornado is or is headed your way imminently, that is within moments. So for those of you really, I'd say as far to the north as Hickory Bluff and east to northeast is Piney Bluff on down to Forest View, and maybe as far to the south as Harriet's Bluff. Here's where the tornado warning is. All of these areas, now you do not want to get into a moving vehicle. Very dangerous to be in a moving vehicle. And in all of these areas, we think it's worth the effort to get you and your loved ones away from windows, get in the hallway. Even if the storm ends up missing you or the worst of it misses you, you only have to do that for about 15 minutes or so, and then the storm is gone and out of the area. Doing a note, because this is going across to all of northeast Florida and southeastern Georgia. If you've just tuned in, this is a tornado warning. If you're new to the area, you may not even know where Woodbine is. So we will occasionally remind you that we're talking about Camden County. Camden County is south of Glen. There we go. Thank you, Lauren. So here's Camden County, Nassau, Duval, Clay, St. John's, and Putnam County. We continue with our tornado warning as well in Baker County. This tornado warning. This is not confirmed. It's Doppler indicated. Highest concern there in the Taylor region. For the rest of us, this thunderstorm complex will continue to march eastward. So these thunderstorms that have produced winds, that have produced some damage, and now a confirmed tornado, they'll continue to work eastward. And so here it is at 2:13. They're going to get into the Jacksonville metropolitan area by about 3 p.m. The highest concern right now, though, is for this tornado warning as the cell now is, or the worst of the storm, is right along I-95 and then working toward the east over Camden and Glenn County. Again, the tornado warning, at least this particular one, says only until 2:15.
There was actually another just kind of blanketed over top of it, Tim. So we'll have to give it a a moment for our graphics to update. But 2:30 is the new updated time for it to expire.
Okay, so this goes until 2:30, which makes total sense for a confirmed tornado. So in Camden County, at least for now, the highest risk for those of you north of Kingsland, north of St. Mary's, although these storms off to your west and southwest will be headed your way. But at the very least, hopefully this visualization shows that anybody in the Kingsland or St. Mary's area, Nassau County or Duval for that matter, and you're thinking you have business, you have loved ones, you have to get up I-95, I would wait. The weather team would recommend that you wait, that by 2:45 or 3, at least in Camden and Glen, this will be off the coast. Now, by about that time, we'll have storms in Nassau and Duval County, but still, for those of you south, especially from Duval south, where it's still in the lower and middle 80s and there's some sun out, and you want to race north on I-95, now is not the time to go. This is a loop of really what we call a radar loop of what's been happening over about the last 6 hours. And so although we track these individual cells that race to the northeast, the march of we'll call it a squall line, it's preceding the actual cold front. The march of the squall line continues to pretty much be from the west to the east and even off to the east and to the southeast. And we mention that because we spend a lot of time talking about the individual cells racing to the northeast or even the east. And you may think, well, nothing's due west of me as far as those cells are concerned. Well, what impacts those of you in Duval and Clay and St. Johns and Putnam County will be these cells just now coming ashore from the Gulf Coast to the Gainesville area. That's actually what we'll be getting into our area here in Jacksonville. So we're going to be watching to see what these cells do as far as impacting many of us, especially from Duval County on to the south. So I think the tornado warning in Baker County has been dropped.
It has been,
Okay,
yes,
so there's
correct.
a little bit of good news. Tornado warning has been dropped in Baker County. That was briefly up in Columbia County. Now, we want to emphasize, for those of you in Baker and Columbia County, that storm system is still pushing on through. So you're still going to have heavy rain and lightning. Could still get some wind gusts to over about 50 miles per hour. But this is the main area of concern for those of you in Camden County. We probably, at least best I can tell from looking at this radar, for those of you in the Woodbine area, whatever that storm was going to do, it has done. And so our main concern there, especially for those of you wanting to drive in and around the Woodbine area, will be there might potentially be some debris on the road. So use some caution there. But the worst of the weather and the confirmed tornado that might possibly still be on the ground. And we do notice an indenture there, which could signify that tornado is possibly still there. Would be, I'd locate it right about here. So east of I-95, this is where the heaviest rains have been, and this is just a little bit past a live look. So if there's going to be rotation, it's probably going to be right about here. So think moving away from the Woodbine area. Heavy rain and gusty winds on I-95, but if we have a confirmed tornado, probably right about here, and then heading off to the northeast to east. So Piney Bluff to areas south of Piney Bluff over about the next 30 minutes or so. We continue to track the hail that's this system. Boy, that has been consistent, hasn't it, Lauren? With the
golf ball size possible, which is, I mean,
that's damaging.
That's pretty intense.
That's dangerous, folks. Possible golf ball size hail. That is certainly enough to produce produce damage to structures.
Right.
Certainly if you're moving along at 60 miles per hour, but even individuals, you don't want to be outside with golf ball size hail coming on down.
So quarter size, right, is what we need for a severe thunderstorm warning. That's the criteria. That's an inch. A golf ball is just under 2 inches. So what, an inch and 3/4. So that's pretty significant if we're seeing that in the area. Also some really heavy rainfall. So this thing could even be rain wrapped, Tim, as well, if folks are sitting outside. So just don't be outside looking for any tornadoes. We want folks to really stay inside. We've still got that pretty significant notch inside of that line, as you can see it pretty clearly. And I can go ahead and take the little arrow tool here.
This is the notch that she's talking about, folks.
And when
she
that
says
purple color too in the radar.
When Lauren says rain, let me just emphasize what Lauren has just said. When she says rain wrapped, what she means is, and this typically happens down south where we live, we have a lot of moisture, is the rain actually wraps around the rotation, meaning you can't see it. And no doubt about it, little Timmy Deegan, as a 7-year-old, would love to go outside and try to find a tornado, and I suspect some of you would find it of interest as well. But if you're anywhere within 5 miles of this system, you don't want to be doing it. It's not like living in Texas or Oklahoma, where you can see the tornado 5 to 10 to 15 miles out. This is one that, yeah, more than likely you wouldn't see it. You'd probably hear it, you'd probably hear it before you actually see it. And the only reason that I'm showing the notch or the potential tornado a little east of that is because this is going to be delayed just a bit. So this is where the worst of all of the ingredients are right now. On 95, east-northeast of Woodbine, the potential tornado would be more than likely on the edge of that as it races off to the east and to the northeast. And this tornado warning goes until 2:30. Here's a few spots within Camden County. Notice now we're taking it to the coast at 235. Now, we mentioned that for a couple reasons. First of all, once it gets to the coast and offshore, then, well, that means, unless you have a loved one on a boat out there, that means the threat is over as far as tornadoes over land. So that's a great marker for us. But in addition, as it gets close to the coast, and these, if the storm has rotation, it's pulling winds out of the southeast, that helps us this time of the year, because with that ocean temperature along Camden County sitting at about 60 degrees, once that cool air gets into these storms, that's going to kill at least the rotation onto the surface. So not only do we then lose our population centers as the systems move to the coast, but even as it gets toward the estuary, that the surface temperatures will cool dramatically, and that will help us with this particular cell. But that's still a pretty strong signature, folks, for a tornado. So we might as well treat it as a confirmed tornado on the ground in Camden County, east of I-95, although certainly along I-95 in Camden County from northwest of Kingsland all the way to Brunswick, heavy rain and lightning and strong gusty winds. But if we're mainly concerned about the rotation, and that's where the highest amount of damage potentially will be, it's now east of I-95 and getting in toward the estuary. We care about every individual, but at least now feeling better in that it's getting toward areas where very few people are. But for those of you in the Piney Bluff area to Hickory Bluff, watching this closely, we're going to watch also, does it continue to move to the east and to the northeast, which it probably will, but there's more heat along to the north. So for those of you between Brunswick and out on the Golden Isles, actually your most critical time is right about now, although you're not under a tornado warning, because you're going to have the heat linger. It could be that, let's put it this way. For those of you east of Brunswick, out on the causeway, and then actually on the islands, on the Golden Isle Islands, the worst the storm has to offer is really essentially going to be over about the next 15 to 20 minutes. You'll probably get some gusts to over 50. We don't see the rotation making it up toward you, but keep a close watch on it. And I would say, I guess this is a long-winded way of saying, why not then don't be in your vehicle either, as far as the causeway between Brunswick and the Golden Isles, and then along all of the areas there from Say Island and then northward. Say, what about for us here in Jacksonville and on to the south? Although technically we're not under a tornado watch, we certainly aren't under a tornado warning. Again, this is a severe thunderstorm warning, and that just simply is verifying that these thunderstorms have been and probably will continue to occasionally produce some winds gusting to 60 miles per hour. And they're going to work into the Jacksonville area after about 3 o'clock this afternoon. When I talk about the metropolitan area, that includes Nassau, that includes, for those of you in Clay and St. Johns County. Even as we get down toward beautiful Green Cove Springs and Palatka, these storms are headed towards you as well. I would say even in Palatka, probably by 3:30 to 4 in St. Augustine by about 5 p.m. Now, we have a couple things going on as far as whether or not these storms will be stronger or weaker. The positive is that the winds above these storms up at about 20, 30, 40,000 feet, they're going to weaken a little bit. Or maybe I should just say those winds are not going to be quite as strong. On the other hand, the heat has been able to build all day long. We have a sea breeze that's developed right along the coastline, and that's going to give reasons for other convection, other billowing clouds to develop. And some of that could come into conflict with the cell coming off to the squall line working from the west to the east. So although the tornado watch is no longer in effect, and that's basically the Severe Storms Forecast Office saying the ingredients aren't quite there for many more additional tornadoes, we certainly can't rule it out because this line is strong, kind of has become its own animal now with this strong rush of cool air, and that rush of cool air is blowing right in toward record heat and high humidity levels over northeastern Florida and southeastern Georgia. But again, if you're just joining us, our main concern for Camden County, that's where the tornado warning is. For those of you that are watching and you want to watch what you normally watch, we would love for you to as well. But this is a pretty serious situation. And even for those of us not under the tornado warning, we just want you to be aware of this solid line of thunderstorms that will be definitely impacting our area as we go through 3, 4, 5, could be even as late as 6 o'clock for those of you from St. Augustine onto the south. So the tornado warning in Camden County is pretty much, think, for those of you now east of I-95. For anybody west of I-95, our main concern for you will simply be the wet roads and any debris that might be on the road. Have had some hail as well. Couldn't rule out some ice still on some roads. Yes, ice if there's been enough hail, especially from the Woodbine area on off to the west and to the southwest. But the main area now of concern is here and then to the east and northeast. Lauren used that term notch earlier, and I think that works out pretty good. This little notch right here of where the worst of the weather is and is headed. And if this at times the tornado is not on the ground, it's right along this leading edge where the strongest winds will be, because that's where our gust front will be that could be producing some winds to 60 miles per hour or more. So therefore, for those of you basically in Piney Bluff, maybe the heavy rains haven't quite hit you, but the strongest winds are probably hitting you right about now and then on to the south of Piney Bluff. Now the good news here is we're talking about we're getting into the estuary, we're getting into cooler waters. Summer waves, it's January, so they're not open. I'm not concerned about having the lifeguards blow the whistles there, so there's some good news. On to the south, notice this is Doppler. Now, this is not a tornado warning, but the Doppler is constantly looking for areas of new rotation. And as forecasters, Robert's doing it right now, Lauren's doing it right now. As forecasters, we will look for new rotation where that cool out rush and then strong winds above it is intersecting where there's still heat, which is going to be to the east and southeast where the rains haven't hit yet, right? And so we'll be looking on these areas where maybe some discrete rotation can develop. This is actually the same cell that caused the need for the tornado warning over Columbia and Baker County earlier. It's just that the threat or the intensity of that rotation is no longer strong enough for a warning. But still, we're going to watch it. Because that is going to be heading off to the east and to the northeast, and we'll watch that to see if does it re-intensify for those of you in Nassau County. In fact, wouldn't be surprised if we hold on to this, that then later on places like Hilliard and Callahan and Yulee, we're wondering just how strong is this cell or not, or does it fold back into the overall squall line or solid line of storms working from the west toward the east. So here we are back to the Piney Bluff area. Again, earlier we'd been mentioning Woodbine because that's actually where the tornado was confirmed on Highway 17, believed to be tornado confirmed on Highway 17, but now it moved away from the Woodbine area, fully involving the Piney Bluff area of northeastern Camden County. So well to the north of Kingsland, well to the north of St. Mary's, well to the north of the Trident submarine base. And heading into the estuary, but the northeastern portion of that will also be getting pretty close to St. Simons and some of the other islands there just to the east of Brunswick. So it's moving more about in this direction. Some of the worst weather St. Simons that you're going to get from the squall line really is happening right about now. So you'll probably see conditions improve there in about 15 minutes or so. Otherwise, that is our only tornado warning. Otherwise, notice the temperatures here, where you still see temperatures in the upper 70s to lower 80s. 82 was the record for the date. There's still plenty of, remember, we think of heat as really a measure of energy. So there's plenty of potential energy there as the overstorm system works toward this, toward where the heat is. So that's why, although we call them upper level dynamics, although the upper level dynamics may weaken a little bit, what's happening on the surface is a lot of lower level potential energy and dynamics, and thus as these storms head into where that heat and moisture is, at the very least, these storms will arrive with heavy rain, with winds gusting to over 40 miles per hour, possibly 50. And I'd love to say that we could rule out the need for a tornado, but it might still possibly happen. I'm curious about this. Is this tornado watch still up?
So the tornado watch is still in effect. I have yet to see anything that it has been canceled for those areas, so I'm assuming that they are just kind of letting it ride for now, but it is after 2, of course. And another thing that we just have to watch out for now is our next severe thunderstorm warning for Camden. Well, let's see. Camden and Glenn County just had a new tornado severe thunderstorm warning. However, in southern Charlton and also then headed toward Nassau County, we've got another cell that kind of has a bit more rotation. So as of about the noon hour, Nassau County was included in that tornado watch, and probably for good reason, because we're starting to see some of that rotation in that storm. And I'll zoom into that right now here. And Tim, actually, you can notice too, anyone watching at home can see how the lightning has really kind of increased in that area. I'm talking about southern Charlton here, over the Okefenokee, going to be headed toward the Nassau County area near St. George and Toledo. So we're going to watch that one now for our next tornado warning. Let's see, we just got a bunch. Expires tornado warning for Camden and Glenn counties, so that's some good news. That's why we're on the air right now. Extends the area of the tornado watch for Bradford, Clay, Duval, and Union until 4 o'clock. So that's the latest that we have right now. We actually no longer have any active tornado warnings, Tim, but our tornado watch now extending into Duval, Union, Bradford, and Clay counties.
Okay, so that's a lot being said. If you're just joining us, folks, that's a lot of colors as well. First of all, yes, Lauren is back, and Robert Speta is here, and we are analyzing the storm system. So what do all these colors mean? The tornado watch has been extended until 4 o'clock. For the counties that had been under the tornado watch that are still along and east of the storm system. Notice for those of you in the First Coast, but you're west of the storm system, you're no longer under the tornado watch. But if you're under the storm or to the east, you're under the tornado watch, and counties have been added to that, which includes now more of the Jacksonville metropolitan area, includes Duval, includes Clay, and includes Union and Bradford counties. Now, for those of you in St. John's and Putnam, or St. John's and Putnam and Flagler County, it doesn't mean you're not going to get the storms. These storms will head your way, but it certainly means the Severe Storms Forecast Office is still just anxious enough about these storms that have occasionally produced tornadoes, especially, I'm sure it got their attention, the confirmed tornado that we had there in and around the Woodbine area, and that's when the tornado watch, why the tornado watch goes until 4 o'clock. I'll tell you what, and here's a heads up for our producers, which are basically captains of the ABC and NBC side. We're going to pull away. We will come back frequently through the afternoon, certainly immediately if a tornado warning is then reissued. All of us be aware of the fact. When I say all of us, for those of you in coastal Glenn County, about another 15 minutes, the worst of your weather will be over. For those of you in Camden County, you have about another 30 minutes. But for those of us basically now in the Jacksonville metropolitan area, Nassau, Baker, Duval, Union, Bradford, Clay, St. John's, and Putnam County, the tornado watch goes until 4. For many of us, the threat of thunderstorms that could cause wind damage will be with us through at least 5. And if we're going to include St. Augustine to Palatka, and why wouldn't we, even until 6 o'clock. So we will be keeping you updated through the afternoon. We'll come back immediately if a tornado warning is mentioned. As Lauren mentioned, we're watching very closely this cell. This cell is why there was a tornado warning earlier issued in Columbia and Baker County. Continues to work to the northeast. The lightning has increased. Might be re-intensifying again. We're going to watch that particularly closely for those of you in Nassau County, and we'll watch other cells march our way. But the given is, for those of you that haven't had heavy rain, lightning, and winds gusting to over 40 miles per hour, it is on the way. So we're going to head back to what is normally scheduled this time of the day, and we'll keep you updated through the afternoon and into the evening.
This has been a severe weather update from the First Coast News Weather Team. Download the First Coast News app for live weather updates anytime.